Welcome to The Blast Zone, the podcast where we dig up the bombs that shook Hollywood and try to find out why they went up in flames. This week, strange days are just days to a weirdo like me. This is Strange Days. Welcome to The Blast Zone.
Welcome to The Blast Zone.
We are not a podcast about bad movies. We are a podcast about movies that did badly.
That's right.
I am Jon Drake, in-house film critic of my Letterboxd account.
And I'm Ian Dukes. I'm a person with thoughts and feelings, and some of them are about movies.
Movies like Strange Days, which we'll be talking about today. But before we get into that, Ian, tell me about your Strange Days. How are you doing this week?
Well, in the last couple weeks here, my dentist drilled a cavity in my tooth. My doctor excised a benign little mole off my skin. And so I just want to come on here today and say, can't we all just get along? I know there's rogue actors among my body parts that will sometimes step out of line. But when the forces of medical authority execute their crackdowns, they're a little harsh. They take a toll. So I'm just hoping that I can come back into peaceful coexistence with my anatomy and let the healing begin.
Was the line, can't we all just get along, maybe a reference to how the Rodney King trial looms over this week's movie?
It does. This movie took me back to the 90s. So got those thoughts spinning in my brain.
We should start calling this section of the show like the Ian Health Hour or the Ian Health Checkup.
Oh, people like hearing about my health problems because that seems to be all I want to talk about.
But I've spent some time with you, and also just in the way you tell me what's going on with your snacking. Ian's got a bit of a sweet tooth here, and the cavity is just more evidence in support of that.
I guess so. I think that dentists just invent the cavities.
You don't think they're real?
They look at their balance sheet and they're like, the end of the quarter's coming up. We need to generate more revenue. Which patients are coming in and how many cavities should we give each one of them?
Who has good insurance and can get the money quickly.
Yeah. So I guess I'm a victim of that, and I should consider myself lucky to get away with just one so far in the last few years. So they're going easy on me.
This is the first time I've heard this conspiracy theory. It's obviously a well-known one about cops at like the end of the month where they have to give out more tickets to meet their quota. I've never heard it about dentists and cavities. So
I've had my eyes opened about just what a money-generating racket the dentistry profession is as a whole. I hate to insult any of our listeners who may be part of that profession.
Who are dentists or sentient teeth that listen to the show.
That would be so cool if a bunch of sentient teeth are listening to us right now. Hi, teeth.
Hi. You know what? It's 2026 in America. I choose to believe that the dentists are just racking up crazy bills for no reason.
You count yourself lucky to get out of there with your teeth and be able to pay the bill.
Every time I take my kids to the dentist, especially, I'm paranoid. I know I don't have cavities because they kind of hurt. You can tell when you have one. I've only had one cavity my entire life.
Oh, wow.
I'm like obsessive compulsive about brushing my teeth. I do it not after every meal, after like every snack. And my dentist is like, you're going to wear away your teeth one day, but I'll cross that bridge when I get to. You got to die of something, right? If it's having teeth that are too clean, so be it.
That's good, though. That's impressive because I haven't had that many cavities, but I'm not quite on your level.
Get on my level, man. I mean, you can't now. You can't go back and undo having those cavities.
No.
We are recording this on Memorial Day. It's a holiday.
Yes.
And this is a new thing we're doing where we can't get our shit together and we record 2 days before the episode's supposed to come out, which is fine for me, but I'm worried about Ian potentially burning out like long periods of inactivity on the podcast and then a flurry of 2 days of just madcap editing.
It's a mixed bag. I love having long lead times, the feeling like there's no pressure on me. And then I just squander all that time. And so there's a new pressure when we record and basically have to finish the episode within a day of hanging up this call, which feels really fast based on everything that needs to get done to get it polished and ready. But it's been working okay. I haven't been pulling my hair out any more than normal, maybe a little less even. It's a bit of a high wire act. If we had a technical problem or something came up, there's no space in the schedule to absorb any kind of shift, but it's working out.
I do like to call it out occasionally, and I feel like it's been a little while, but there are podcasts with hundreds of thousands of listeners that rake in millions of dollars in advertisements that basically just record themselves talking and put it out as is. The amount of editing that Ian does on this podcast is Herculean, so he deserves some kudos.
Thank you.
If you see him on the street, say thanks to Ian.
Sometimes I do feel like I am cleaning out the fabled Augean stables, washing away all the horse doo-doo in our conversation and just leaving the good bits of things we sometimes say.
Thanks for calling my carefully thought out sentences horse doo-doo. And on that note, did you happen to watch anything you wanted to share with the listeners?
I did. I'm bringing something back, an encore to a movie you just brought 2 episodes ago. It's Project Hail Mary, and I thought it was worth talking about because I finally got to see it. It's a major success story at this year's box office. It's now up over $675 million on its $200 million budget, and it seems to be a part of what people seem to say is a good year overall for theatrical movies, a resurgence for the business. I did not go and see this in the theater, but I did buy a digital digital copy because I like to contribute to the movie economy sometimes in that way. And it's really fun. It was money well spent. Watching the movie, I remembered that I did read the first chapter or two of the book because immediately I could see how Drew Goddard and Lord and Miller took Andy Weir's somewhat tedious prose and movieized it really successfully. In the book, it felt like pages of the main character lying there going, who am I? Where am I? What is this thing? What is that thing? What am I doing here? It was like endless. And in the movie, it's fast paced. It just flies through that. It's really breezy on screen. Of course, our boy Ryan Gosling is in top slapstick form. Among his many comedy moments, I loved getting to hear his girlish screams, which I don't know if he's busted out that move since The Nice Guys, so that was really fun.
Can't think of a situation where maybe in Barbie he does. I can't recall.
He might. There certainly seems like a movie where there could have been an opportunity for a little shriek. This is top tier, audience pleasing Hollywood blockbuster kind of movie making, but it's cool because it's also a little bit fresh. It's an original sci-fi story. It's full of heart. I just thought it was nice that audiences responded to it, rewarded it, and as we always say, hopefully we'll see more movies like this get made.
Yeah, I think the instinct among film nerds is to scoff at anything that's like big budget, family friendly. Optimism runs rampant throughout the movie, but
right.
I couldn't find it in my heart to be anything but charmed by this movie. In the words of the best character of 2020s, maybe, Rocky, amaze, amaze, amaze. He's the cutest little guy. I would die for Rocky.
Really cool performance by that voice actor, and now I don't know his name, but the two of them are a real fun pair on screen.
Some of the best scenes in the movie are when Rocky first moves into Gosling's spaceship and Gosling is lamenting his lack of privacy. It becomes like a roommate situation comedy for like a good half hour, and that's just really some of the most enjoyable movie watching you can have these days. And, optimism is important right now in our art. Can't let the negativity that's running rampant in our world fester too much. We need something to lift our spirits.
That's true. I almost can't find any recent media, even as I moved from popular TV shows and movies into trying to read more literary fiction, and everything is post-apocalyptic. It's like everybody's writing about the end of the world. It's pretty dark. So it's nice to consume a story where someone turns things around.
I've been reading a lot about the end of the world too. It's called the news. Hey. No, but I went the opposite route. You had a fun, optimistic, fun time movie that you brought, and I'm bringing a very different movie, and one that's also super hard to Google without getting paranoid that you're going to end up on a kind of list. I watched How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
Oh.
Yeah, this was a 2022 movie, or actually, I guess it got its wide release in 2023 by Daniel Goldhaber. And the reason I came to this film and wanted to check it out is because Daniel Goldhaber does have a new movie out that is getting some great reviews. And I think it did pretty poorly at the box office, so maybe we'll get the chance to talk about it one day, which is Faces of Death.
Okay.
And Faces of Death, maybe our younger listeners don't recall, was a very notorious VHS tape that was available, I think, at like most video stores. And it was rumored to be footage of people really actually dying. That wasn't the case. It was all curated and basically done to show off special effects. It was not real people dying.
Oh, that was fake? I mean, I was a kid when that was like a thing, and we all just assumed it was real.
Yeah, apparently the director was just like a special effects guy who didn't even like horror movies. So he's, I don't want to make a movie. I'm just going to make some scenes and show off my gore effects.
That's wild. Now I have to read up on that. It resets a whole chapter of my youthful understanding of it.
Yeah, I hope I'm understanding that correctly. I listened to Sean Fennessy do an interview with Goldhaber about the movie, and that was his understanding of it as well.
Editor's note, we looked it up, and it's a mix of real and fake.
But yeah, it's a movie that I'm just not quite brave enough to bring myself to watch yet. But hearing how it was so good, I kind of checked out the director. I saw he had a movie called How to Blow Up a Pipeline, and I remembered hearing about it and wanting to check it out and never getting around to it. I guess you'd describe it as a thriller. It is about what it sounds like it's about. It's a group of activists who get together in the name of blowing up a pipeline that is threatening to spoil the earth in rural Texas. They come from all over the country, all different walks of life with a common goal. And it's really kind of a procedural about how they go about it. But his horror bona fides do show through, even though there's no real gore to speak of in this movie, because great at ratcheting up tension and a sense of dread that something can go wrong, very wrong at any moment throughout this process. And there's some twists and some turns, but it's quite worthwhile, I would say. It's got some actors you might recognize, not in a way where you would know their names, but really mostly a cast of unknowns that just do a fantastic job of portraying their respective characters and feel like real people you might meet in the world who are on this mission.
Cool. Yeah, you know what? I've seen part of that movie. I also heard good reviews about it and tried checking it out once, and I think I watched a lot of it. I think I watched an hour of that movie, and now I can't recall whether I forgot to go back because of my attention issues or I actually got too tense and I didn't feel like going back to it. I do remember it being pretty edgy.
Yeah, I think I put in my Letterboxd review of the film that if they made it today, it would probably be called How to Blow Up a Data Center, But like everything in this movie is it's only a few years old, and it was based on a book that's only a few years old. But yeah, this kind of eco-terrorism is at the forefront of a lot of people's minds right now. now.
It seems very relevant. I might have to go back and try to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, I'd say it's very much worth your time. And speaking of very much worth your time, how's that?
I love it. Yeah.
Do you agree?
One.
We're talking about Strange Days this week. We talk about Strange Days almost every week, but this time the movie is called Strange Days. And Ian, what did you know about Strange Days before we got prepping for this episode? Had you seen it? Had you heard of it? How much of it did you absorb through cultural osmosis?
I remember knowing about this movie back in the day, and I couldn't be sure if I ever saw it, but I do remember a friend who recommended it to me back in the 90s or early 2000s, like, hey, dude, this is a cool movie. You got to check it out. And it always lived in that category in my head ever since then. And as I'm sure we'll get into a little bit, in this case, it's not just my own laziness that kept me from ever getting around to seeing this movie. It's hard to see. So made a little extra effort this week, and it was cool to finally check it out.
Did you just watch it on my Plex?
I did my own little adventure on the high seas so that I could have a local copy.
Is something wrong with my Plex, Ian?
Yeah, I don't want to slag your Plex on the air, but I have little issues with it where I sometimes like to fend for myself.
All right. Yeah, I actually did not see Strange Days until a few years ago, partially because of the issues with its availability that you're talking about. I wasn't yet adept at procuring my own copies of certain films at the time.
Sure.
But also it coincided with my getting really into the game Cyberpunk's 2077, which feels like a spiritual sequel to Strange Days and basically features the whole squid recordings thing as a major plot point. They're called brain dances in Cyberpunk.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But when I was reading reviews of the game, almost every review I saw mentioned the movie Strange Days, and I was like, all right, I finally got to sit down and watch this. And it's very Bigelow. If you know Kathryn Bigelow's movies, it's got a lot of her hallmarks.
Okay.
But overall, a pretty successful little dystopian thriller.
Yeah, it's a cool movie. It's got a cool cast. It's got lots of cool things going for it. I guess maybe there was a bit of a long set of expectations built up for it where I was like, a little disappointed by this or that thing. And we'll go through and point out here and there. I feel like overall the movie is kind of overstuffed. And I kind of hesitate to sometimes accuse filmmakers of, you put too much good stuff in your movie. You fucked it up. But I can see why it's just a little hard to consume. It's a movie with two huge stories in it, a really complex techno-thriller mystery, and simultaneously a social justice story that at times you think they're the same thing, but in the end they're not. They're two parallel stories. And then there's a big love triangle, which might be more of a love pentagon that connects to both sides of those thriller stories. And it's a lot. There's just scene after scene that have to be put in there to do all that work, set up the techno cyberpunk aspects of it, and then take you layer by layer through this very twisty mystery while all this other stuff is going on.
I think the movie might actually be aggressively uncool to me, only in the way that a 90s movie that is trying really hard to be cool can be. It's got a very 90s aesthetic and a very 90s view of the future, but also kind of a prescient one. It's only taking place 4 years in the future. So shit must have got real weird between 95 and 99 in Kathryn Bigelow's head. But yeah, we will have to talk about how successful these kind of separate but concurrent plot lines are. The plot line kind of focusing on the corruption within the LAPD and racial injustice mostly just seems to be like, aren't cops racist? And it's like, yeah, but like, what else? What else you got for me? Yeah, the cops suck. Like, fuck the LAPD.
That's almost the backdrop. And then it fools you with a little misdirection that might actually be part of a much bigger conspiracy. And then it drops that.
It's not.
Then it reverses course on that. And it's actually, no, the only conspiracy is in the music business. It's like strictly a paranoid businessman plot that drives all the twisty conspiracy stuff. Yeah, it's got a lot of cool things, though. We'll talk about its vision of the future, which, as you say, takes a fair amount of artistic license to go, oh, yeah, we want to show you a future LA, but we also want to make it around the turn of the millennium because that's just such a cool setting to depict. But it's not that far from now, but we're going to pretend that it's 25 years from now when all this new technology comes into play that doesn't exist now.
Yeah, and I actually did like the anachronisms that still exist in the world. You've got a lot of futuristic technology and even the fashion feels futuristic. But then Lenny just drives, I don't know, like an early 90s Mercedes. It's like, that's a car you could buy in 1999 or 1995 from a regular old car dealership. So it's that kind of, it's not quite steampunk. What's like the sci-fi equivalent of steampunk, where it's like some technology feels of the time the movie was made and some it feels like it's actually trying to be predictive.
Is cyberpunk encompass that idea?
I guess it does.
It's both futuristic and gritty at the same time.
Yeah, I guess that's the crux of cyberpunk in general, right? It's like the future is not going to be all shiny and clean and sanitized. We might make leaps and bounds technologically, but it doesn't mean people are any less fucked up.
And somehow becoming fucked up, becoming a little bit technologically advanced and majorly societally crumbling makes people specifically embrace a punk aesthetic, right? Like a neon punk aesthetic. Like the worse the world gets, the more that you have to dress up in spiky outfits and bright colors and wear mohawks.
I think you've just motivated me to go shopping, get some new clothes. I get a nice leather jacket with some big shoulder pad spikes and glue-on mohawk.
This movie avoids the worst, cheesiest version of that trope of like, that's how you know that nihilism is running rampant through your crumbling society, that everybody's gone strictly punk. It's like a little toned down, it's a little more mature version of that, but the aesthetic is kind of always there, and it always freaked me out. Starting with Mad Max and The Road Warrior, it's like, why do people get more punky? Like, why don't they just get more, I don't know, earthy when things get tough?
It's interesting because what you were just talking about made me think immediately of Batman Forever, and there's probably the most maligned sequence in the movie is like Robin, Chris O'Donnell. He takes the Batmobile out for a spin and runs into a group of neon punks, but like you're saying, this movie has a little bit of restraint with how it depicts that. And Batman Forever goes obviously super far in the other direction, where these guys have pink glow-in-the-dark paint on their faces, drawing skulls on it with it. I think their jackets have LED lights in them, like pink LED lights, so they can glow, and just bright pink mohawks. And then it's really like what could have happened with Strange Days if Bigelow wasn't talented, smart. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting aesthetic, and you're right. It runs through so much of popular culture.
And that was the same year as Strange Days, 95. So like they were two sides of the coin, really, about how people were looking at dystopian futuristic settings at the time.
Yeah, somehow I think it relates to like old people who see change through their glimpse of rock and roll or whatever pop musical stuff bubbles up to them. And then they can't distinguish between actual punk aesthetics and like pop music aesthetics. So Madonna and Britney Spears and Billy Idol and Suicidal Tendencies are all like the same thing to them. And they all represent change and fear and whatever, and they just kind of bottle them up into this funny corporate version of rebellion.
Ian with a Suicidal Tendencies reference. I love it.
I had to come up with a hardcore band to throw in there.
You picked a good one. Now, Rob Trujillo, one of the most famous, probably one of the wealthiest musicians in the world at this point.
Wow.
From playing with Metallica for the last 20 years.
Irony.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to get into the making of this movie? It had kind of a complicated trip to the screen and also after. So it would be a fun one to get into.
Yeah. Let's hear about the strange days that led up to making this movie.
All right. Kathryn Bigelow started her career with a trio of critically successful but financially dismal movies. The outlaw biker drama The Loveless in 1981, the horror thriller Near Dark in 1987, and the neo-noir Blue Steel in 1990.
She bombed with Blue Steel? That's not a good look.
It was 1991's Point Break, a critical and commercial hit that launched the grown-up action star career of Keanu Reeves and spawned immortal lines like Utah Get Me Too, that catapulted her into the upper echelons of Hollywood and gave her a blank check to make her ambitious dream project, a bleak, violent, and cynical dystopian sci-fi neo-noir called Strange Days, based on a script her ex-husband James Cameron started working on in 1985.
More like Strange Years.
Set in the last days of 1999, Strange Days follows Lenny Nero, a disgraced ex-cop that now makes his living selling illegal squid recordings that allow the user to experience the recorded memories and physical sensations of other people, as he is pulled into a conspiracy involving his ex-girlfriend and her new lover, dirty cops, racist cops, and dirty racist cops.
So every different kind.
Cameron had always envisioned Bigelow to direct the film, and she jumped at the opportunity when presented with the script, but first she had some notes. The movie's political and social commentary largely comes from Bigelow's own edits, as she had been deeply affected by the 1992 Los Angeles riots that followed the Rodney King verdict, even volunteering in the downtown cleanup, which exposed her to the anger and frustration seething within the city she called home. Bigelow focused on adding edginess and grit, while Cameron focused on fleshing out the romantic parts of the plot, and the pair eventually finished a 90-page treatment, which they brought to frequent Martin Scorsese collaborator Jay Cox to turn into a shooting script.
They got Cox to flesh it out.
With an initial budget of $30 million secured in a joint deal between Cameron's own Lightstorm Entertainment and 20th Century Fox, the film was ready to begin casting. Angela Bassett was the first actor that Bigelow reached out to, and she accepted the role. Andy Garcia was reportedly close to joining the cast as Lenny as of January 1994, but in February of that same year, Ray Fiennes was cast, despite misgivings from Cameron that a glibber and slicker actor would be better suited for the role. Bono was also apparently in negotiations to join the cast as villain Philo Grant, a role that would eventually go to Michael Wincott instead, who was probably just sitting around waiting for a director to call him and ask him to play a bad guy.
Call Wincott. He can fill in the blanks.
Production began on June 6, 1994, with filming sites throughout Los Angeles, with the start of the O.J. Simpson murder trial looming over the city. Mostly shooting at night, the production took 77 days, with the budget eventually ballooning to about $42 million. A release date of October 13, 1995 was set, and expectations were high for Bigelow's first movie since her breakout hit 5 years earlier. Audiences unfortunately had their attention elsewhere. Strange Days opened in 8th place, bringing in just $3.6 million as it faced stiff competition from the similarly dark and grimy Seven,
What's in the box office?
plus other crime thrillers like Assassins, Dead Presidents, Jade, and To Die For, all finishing ahead of Strange Days. In week 2, Get Shorty debuted and was a hit, further siphoning Strange Days' potential audience and causing a damning 60% drop. By week 3, it was being pulled from all but 1/3 of its original theaters, and it eventually made just over $17 million worldwide, a massive financial failure that nearly derailed Bigelow's career in Hollywood.
They started calling her Smallalow.
But have no fear, Bigelow would hit it big again. Not with her next movie, The Weight of Water, which made about $300,000 against its $16 million budget, and also not with her movie after that, K-19 The Widowmaker, which cost $100 million and made just $65 million. She'd finally break out of her slump with 2008's The Hurt Locker, which made more than triple its budget back and was a critical smash hit. It also made Jeremy Renner a movie star, so mixed bag. Like so many movies we cover, Strange Days would slowly grow in estimation over the years. Its cult classic status has only been strengthened by the difficulty audiences have had in finding it, as it is not currently streaming anywhere. It only has a Region 2 Blu-ray release, meaning North American audiences would need a special Blu-ray player to play it. The movie may have been considered an abject failure at the time of its release, but it is now admired for its bold vision and prescience about the many strange days Americans would be in for in the decades following its release.
Strange days indeed.
Most peculiar, mama. Roll.
You were waiting for that one. What I want to know is who the fuck gave Kathryn Bigelow $100 million to make a submarine movie when she hadn't had a hit since 91?
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that this movie in particular put her in director jail, because you look at it and you go, it's a pretty good movie. This is not a director that I would say has lost her way or was responsible for this thing not performing. I guess I'm accusing her of that in terms of the edit maybe of this movie could have made it a tighter film. But yeah, it was probably after that she really locked herself in that cell with, what was the one that was after this?
The Weight of Water. Yeah. The interesting thing about Kathryn Bigelow is The Weight of Water might be the only movie she's ever made that has mostly negative reviews.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Her movies tend to be well liked. I think K-19 The Widowmaker was a mixed bag, but then it's like The Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30, A House of Dynamite, Detroit, all pretty well received critically. But financially, her movies just, maybe they're a little adult, a little kind of opaque in their intentionality. Hard to market. This is a very hard movie to market. And then reading the kind of movies that were in the theater at the time, it's a lot of competition for this audience. A big chunk of those, because Strange Days is what? It's a sci-fi, serial killer, erotic thriller, right?
Yeah.
And you've got kind of other movies that all contain elements of those genres and maybe are a little bit sexier when you're putting it on a poster or in a movie trailer.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say sexier, because the poster for this movie is basically glamour shots of its three gorgeous stars, Ray Fiennes and Juliette Lewis and Angela Bassett, all looking like models, like looking into the camera. And so to some extent, you go, oh, maybe it was marketed for its sexiness, but then it's, I don't know, it's just got so many elements.
Yeah.
It tries to do this sort of dry, cynical humor. Its hero is a very noirish hero that's down on his luck. He's getting beat up by goons and life is kicking him around and he's hustling and he's cracking wise to make his way through it all. But then that clashes with the darker, edgier, what I feel like are the more Bigelow-esque aspects of the script, where it really gets dark with the murder mystery and the heavy social unrest stuff that's going on. And there's a little bit of a struggle for the whole movie to cohere tonally and like unlock that ability to really enjoy it. Because like, oh, I know what this movie is and it's giving me this one thing that I'm enjoying.
Bigelow had a quote, I can't find it, about how she likes depicting violence against women because it's realistic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, but I can't find the exact quote, so I don't want to bastardize it. I think part of what we're kind of bumping up against where you're saying there's tonal inconsistencies in the movie is that, sure, they were happily married for a couple of years and collaborated both before and after their marriage, but I don't think James Cameron and Kathryn Bigelow have a whole lot in common as filmmakers. And I think you're kind of seeing like the parts of the movie that are a little more lighthearted and silly feel like a James Cameron action movie. And then Kathryn Bigelow is way more interested in interrogating sexual violence and abuse of power within institutions. And it's like they don't necessarily fit neatly together.
Yeah, that's definitely a feeling you get watching this movie. And the violence perpetrated on women in this is really rough. And it's hard to take, even if you go in knowing that the director is a woman and she's doing this intentionally and it's not cheap thrills the way it might show up in other action movies. It's hard to take. I'm not sure I think she handled it well or in the best possible way, which is just my judgment on her artistic creation here, but it left me a little uneasy.
Yeah, there's a film critic, Michael Marisol, who basically said if this movie was directed by a man, there'd be protests in the street outside of the premiere.
Wow.
Because it treats its female characters so roughly, but it's also hard for us to criticize criticize a female filmmaker for depicting what she feels to be a more realistic depiction of how women are treated in society.
There's that, and then maybe we'll come back around to it at the end, but, it's this love triangle, and there's this guy, and he's torn between these two women.
Is he, though? I don't even think he recognizes that one of them is interested in him romantically until the very end of the movie.
No, he's not exactly torn. He's poised between them because he's aiming all his attention at one and ignoring the other, and she's aiming all her attention at him, and he's being ignored by the one he likes. So it's a very strong love triangle type of thing, misplaced affections and loyalties. And that part reads well, but in the end, it takes the Juliette Lewis character and kind of crumples her up and throws her in the trash.
Yeah.
It's kind of subtle because it happens really fast and you don't find out what everybody knows and what their motivations are until the very last moments because it's a mystery. So you don't know what she knows. You don't know what she's been plotting or being dragged into. But in the end, if you stop and make sense of it, you go, oh, she's kind of a piece of shit. And she didn't care about anybody. And all her choices of romantic loyalty were capricious and not based on any kind of appreciation of this character as a human being, vulnerable or not. She's just kind of very thin and worthless. I'm sorry if that sounds too harsh of my judgment on her.
No, by the end, yeah, I was well over the character of Faith. And at the risk of revealing my inherent biases, I just don't really like Juliette Lewis as an actor. Never have. Yeah, just something about her. There's some scenes in this that when she's screaming at him as he's going on the elevator down, she's just let me go. You can't save me. I'm not worth saving. I almost was giggling because I thought her line deliveries were pretty horrendous.
They were weird.
And then you find out she's playing a part in that scene, so maybe that's why they don't feel sincere.
It's very hard because the movie is so dedicated to its mystery. It has to play every one of her big outbursts so that it works multiple ways as both sincere, that she really doesn't like the hero anymore, or she doesn't want to be with him, or maybe she does, but she's trying to protect him, or maybe she does, but she's involved in a thing where she's actively trying to hurt him. It needs to work for so many interpretations that when you try to read them on the surface, a lot of her lines are just hard to parse. And I kind of felt a little forgiving of her as an actor because I'm like, who knows what she thought she had to try to communicate subtextually in those lines.
I mean, can you blame her for not wanting to be with Lenny, though? He lives in a little shitbox apartment. His car's always getting repoed. He was getting thrown out of places. And then she could go hang out with Michael Wincott in his warehouse apartment that just has a lot of chains dangling and a big heart-shaped bed in the middle of it for some reason. It's a very 90s idea of a lair.
It's very much a punky lair. But that same pathetic nature of Lenny highlights the poignancy of Angela Bassett's character. And that's what I think is really good casting for that reason, because her character is tough. She's an actor who portrays strength and toughness very effectively. And yet she is pining for this sad little fucker, right? That you're always like, what is she doing? What does she see in this guy? And so it makes an interesting statement about love and how we don't choose who we fall for.
The movie does take some steps to explain her attachment to him, too, with a flashback scene that is funny for its own reasons, but we'll get into that. Should we start getting into the plot? I feel like we're starting to just talk very specifically about things that the audience is not going to have any idea about.
That's true. Yeah, let's go for it. It's December 30th, 1999, in a slightly futuristic Los Angeles. Lenny Nero, played by Ralph Fiennes, is an ex-cop turned dealer. But Lenny doesn't deal in drugs. What he sells are squid tapes, an illegal technology in which little computer discs hold recordings of another person's sensory experience. When played back on a portable deck with an electrode headset, the discs give you the intense experience of being in someone else's body. Lenny offers his clients clips of cheap thrills and sex, but when he's home alone, he's addicted to watching his own personal collection. Recordings of happier times with his ex-girlfriend, Faith, played by Juliette Lewis. Meanwhile, outside on the streets, LA is on the edge of civil unrest, and things are heating up due to the recent slaying of rapper and civil rights activist Jericho 1 in what police are calling a gang-related incident. Coincidentally, Faith's new boyfriend is that same late rapper's manager, a sleazeball named Philo Gant, played by Michael Wincott. While hanging out with his buddy, another ex-cop named Max, played by Tom Sizemore, Lenny is approached by a sex worker friend of Faith's named Iris. Iris is freaking out, having just barely escaped from a pair of shady LAPD cops named Steckler and Engelman, played by Vincent D'Onofrio and William Fichtner, who seemed bent on killing her. Iris happened to be wearing a squid device during that encounter, and she dropped the disc into Lenny's Mercedes before she went in to see him. But before Iris can explain any of this, Lenny's car is towed by a repo man, and she runs off scared. Now carless, Lenny calls another old friend to ask for a ride. That friend is Mace, played by Angela Bassett, a limo driver and professional bodyguard. Despite the fact that Lenny infuriates her by hustling her client and plying illegal clips in the back of her limo, Mace cares deeply about Lenny and has a soft spot for him. Mace agrees to drop Lenny at the nightclub where his ex-girlfriend Faith is performing, but the club is owned by the jealous and controlling Philo, who has his bodyguard bounce Lenny out. Undeterred, Lenny sneaks back in for a private moment with Faith in her dressing room. He warns her about what Iris told him, that Faith is in some kind of danger, and he tries to convince her to leave Philo, but she won't hear it. Faith tells him it's over between them and he should leave her alone. And on his way out, things only get worse for Lenny. He runs into Max, who, despite their supposed friendship, hadn't bothered to tell him he's been working for Philo, who hired him to follow Faith around. Then to top it off, the bouncer finds Lenny and ejects him once more into the back alley, giving him a punch in the face this time to teach him a lesson.
Whew. Lenny is not having the best night.
He's kind of a sad sack. He's an ex-cop for reasons that aren't fully explained, but he got drummed out of the force. He was a vice cop.
Yeah, they don't really give you a concrete explanation for what happened. He obviously clashed with the commissioner, who was not the commissioner at the time. I think it was his direct supervisor or something.
Okay.
They had a personal relationship. Yeah, he's fallen on hard times, even though he drives a Mercedes and has a Rolex and a very expensive jacket. We know that the Mercedes is not paid for because it gets towed. We know the Rolex is fake. The jacket, they leave up in the air. We don't know if that's real or not.
He does care about his clothes. He has some interesting character quirks like that. And it's a good setup for a noir thing. An ex-cop who's some kind of dealer. You know, obviously this technology is a stand-in for any other kind of drugs, or presciently for social media, which have taken over and addicted people's brains. But he's got like one buddy who's another ex-cop who's now a PI, and another buddy who's a limo driver and bodyguard. It's like a great world for a noir hero to live in.
Yeah, but what do you think about Ralph Fiennes in the role? Do you share Cameron's concerns that maybe he's not sleazy enough to make it work?
Maybe Ralph Fiennes got that feedback because he plays him really sleazy. I'm like, if anything, he leaned a little too hard into the stereotypical sleazy vibe. Like somehow something feels off about Ralph Fiennes in this movie. He's a tremendous actor.
He's one of my favorite actors, but I think he's maybe just slightly too dignified, or maybe it's our perception of him as being too dignified that doesn't make it totally work.
Yeah. First of all, it's just weird to see him as the handsome, pure hero of the movie. I mean, he's not morally pure, but he became famous in roles playing baddies and evil characters and seems very severe and stern. And he's like the jokey, down on his luck, hard luck hero in this. And maybe it's just a little hard to perceive him as that.
Let's say what he is. All right, let's stop dancing around it. He's Bradley Cooper. I don't know why he's Bradley Cooper in this movie, but he is. He looks almost exactly like him. And he's trying to do that Bradley Cooper thing of like a lovable douchebag.
That's a great analogy. I didn't come up with Bradley Cooper, but you're spot on with that. I came up with Harrison Ford as Rick Deckard in Blade Runner because the movie obviously owes something to that. It's a future LA. They spend a lot of time in Chinatown with neon signs and exotic sort of multicultural vibes. And he wears interesting sort of futury overcoats and big ties and stuff. So there's kind of like a Blade Runner-y vibe.
Deckard was a little more stern, though, than Lenny is. He was a little more... It's been a while since I've actually watched Blade Runner, so I might be wrong.
Yes, he's cooler, he's colder and harsher. He's a more gritty version, but he has a little bit of those moments where he has to suffer the indignities, which is something that this character suffers a lot of indignities and does it in a more overtly comic way.
He gets thrown out of places for like a third of this movie is just Lenny getting thrown from places like DJ Jazzy Jeff on The Fresh Prince.
Yeah, he gets bounced out, and it's like the same place.
Yeah.
I was telling myself it was different places, but no, it's the same place, like 3 to 5 times during this movie. He's bounced.
I love when he gets thrown out and immediately just breaks a window and goes back in. It's not even later that night. It's just the next scene. He immediately does it.
So somehow Harrison Ford, an actor with incomparable charisma and charm, makes that scoundrelly thing lovable in ways that I think Fiennes struggles to do. One of the reasons I think he struggles is that he seems to have constructed his American accent by doing an exact impression of James Woods, which is like...
Not the most likable man, yeah.
Not the guy you necessarily want to be reminded of.
Even before like social media where we knew what a bag of shit James Woods really is, he always played scum. Like, you know, he's like the least likable actor in Hollywood just because of how good he is at playing sleazeballs.
So yeah, there were choices, but you can't help but like Ralph Fiennes. And he's such a handsome, hunky leading man in the Bradley Cooper mold in this that I was like, oh, are there more movies where he gets to do that I don't know about?
It's a great question. I don't have a good answer for you because I've known Ralph Fiennes outside of Voldemort as this kind of elderly, buttoned up British man. Like
right.
In the James Bond movies, even in the 28 Years Later movies, you see a picture of him. You think he's covered in blood. It's not, it's iodine. Then you think he's going to be like a monster, but he's the sweetest man in those movies. He's just the nicest guy, but he's very buttoned up and British. So would Andy Garcia, you think, have been able to pull it off? I can't imagine why not, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad movie with Andy Garcia as Lenny. He has a different kind of vulnerability and emotional, like he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's basically bursting into tears at any any moment, which Fiennes doesn't do. So maybe he would have been more lovable, and maybe that in some way that could have made the character easier to relate to and really
connect with. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it would be a slightly different movie, but not necessarily a better or worse one, just stronger in some ways and weaker in others. I skipped over your notes here, which are about the depiction of futuristic Los Angeles as a whole. We already talked about the Mad Maxism on display, but the movie makes a lot of bold predictions about the future, and it gets some right in pretty interesting ways.
Yeah, you pointed out to me the militarization of the police is right away like super familiar to us, but it was, to be fair, it was super familiar to them at the time because they had just been through the riots of, what was that, 92, 93?
Yeah, 92. That might have been the first time that became clear on a national level to the rest of the country that this is how police departments in big cities were spending their budget, was not on like neighborhood policing, more like stockpiling of military grade weaponry.
Yeah, there's freaking tanks on the streets in this movie, and it's at all times. It's like constant near riot on every street that they drive down in this movie the entire time.
Also, there's a throwaway line on the radio about gas is over $3 a gallon. Oh, country mouse, $3 a gallon. What I wouldn't do for those days.
Yeah, sounds like a bargain. I'm going to go fill up my truck.
Yeah. You pointed out real-time voicemail transcription. They got that right?
That was outside of the squid technology. That's the only sort of really technical computer thing that they show. And they showed a couple times. Like, people don't have cell phones. They're still calling Lenny on his landline, but his landline has a screen attached. And as the person is leaving their audio message, it's writing it out on the screen, just like my iPhone does today. And I'm still impressed when my iPhone does that. So I really like that prediction.
Landline with a screen. What is this? The ending of Under the Silver Lake? No.
Man, we didn't talk about how we're just doing 2 LA-based neo-noirs in a row with very different flavors, but we seem to have a type.
Yeah, very different flavors. And maybe not as much fun location shooting for you, because most of this is like downtown LA, right?
Yeah, some familiar places. They keep going up and down Hollywood Boulevard a lot. They go to the Sunset Strip, and then the climax happens downtown by the Bonaventure, which I'm pretty familiar with. That's pretty close to, that's only a couple blocks from the Standard Hotel and that area where I used to work.
Which featured prominently Under the Silver Lake, of course.
Yeah.
Under the Silver Lake made me want to visit Los Angeles more than Strange Days did. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Despite all the dog killings and such.
Despite the dog killer lurking at all times, the East Side is still a cool place to chill in Under the Silver Lake, and Hollywood and downtown look pretty miserable in Strange Days.
Yeah. We touched on Juliette Lewis a little bit. Did you have any other notes about her that you wanted to bring up here? I mean, she is lead singer of a band in her own time, separate from being an actor.
Yeah, maybe I knew that about her, but this is a movie that, like a lot of movies do, I see it as a risky move when you go, oh, one of the main characters is the singer of a band, and so we're going to have a scene in a nightclub, and they're going to get on stage, and we're going to let the actors sing their own part because they love to do that shit. And like usually like, oh, this is a cringe moment in the movie. And Juliette Lewis is super credible. Her performance is good. They cast real musicians. You could just see the difference right away. You can see when someone's playing the bass on stage and like, oh, that's a bass player playing the bass.
I believe it's Skunk Anansi is her backing band, and they're the band that's playing when she's not on stage also, which were like an industrial rock band from the UK. That were pretty new at the time. They're not a bad band. I've checked out some of their stuff in the past.
Yeah, so I like breathed a sigh of relief when I'm like, oh, they're letting Juliette Lewis sing this whole song on screen, which usually I get very tired of quickly. But I'm like, oh no, she's bringing it. It's credible. Like, thank you. The movie did that part right.
You know what else they did right, and it is credible, is Angela Bassett as a badass.
That's
just
true.
Beating the shit out of dudes left and right. They had to give us a throwaway line there that she's had to go through combat training to be a bodyguard.
Okay.
And, it pays off in big ways. She's very believable.
If she just went through bodyguard school and came out like that, she's a prodigy because she kicks everybody's ass. And it's really fun. It's fun that this very tough woman who's very independent pulled herself up and protected her child and her family and has this terribly sad soft spot for this loser.
Just dragging her down at every turn. Yeah.
Yeah. She gets to step in and save his bacon a bunch of times. And it's very rewarding.
Also, respectfully, one of the most beautiful women ever put on screen.
Absolutely.
The sequence at the end of this movie where she's dressed up for the big New Year's Eve party is,
yeah, that's fun. And there's a little moment, that's where there's a little crack in the space between them, right? Like he sees her for the first time and you get that he's realizing she's beautiful.
Oh my God, she's wearing a mini skirt. Now I recognize her beauty.
And then he makes a joke about it to diffuse that. And it's another area where I'm like, ooh, these fine actors in this overall pretty good script. I felt like they fumbled that line. Like I got what the point of that scene was and it didn't quite hit.
There was one of those lines that actually worked for me in the first act was when, it might have been in the first act, I can't actually remember, but he goes, oh no. And Mace goes, what? Because this shirt doesn't go with this tie.
Right.
And I was like, that was them using that kind of ice breaking to good effect. But yeah, at the end, when he finally acknowledges her beauty, it fell a little flat.
Which is too bad because we're obviously very sympathetic to those actors and you kind of want to see more of the moments land. But judging it as objectively as I could. I felt like there was something in the script that just between the script and the actor's ability to make it work, a lot of the little moments where you know what's going on, the lines themselves come out a little awkward.
Yeah, speaking of a little awkward, we got Tom Sizemore here in the most fuck-ass wig I've ever seen in my life as Max Pelter. I have a theory about Tom Sizemore. I think in like the 1990s, you could just hire Tom Sizemore like you would hire a caterer or like a boom mic operator. Like you didn't have to give him a script or anything, and he would just do what he would normally do anyway in your movie. Like he would just live his life, and you'd be like, all right, that'll work. Like this guy's insane. Hopefully not the case with this movie, because this is more horrendous than some of the other stuff he gets up to.
Yes, I hope you're not accusing him of literally
certainly
doing
not
what he does in this movie in real life.
Certainly not. But like his character in the first like 2/3 of this movie, yes, just like showing up places and being drunk and annoying and saying outlandish things and pissing people off,
drinking beer in a bar and pranking his buddy and
eating noodles like out of the stereotypical Chinese takeout container in his car and just like kind of tossing them over his shoulder. Yeah, I could picture him doing all that shit on the daily.
He's a natural at this kind of role. Good casting.
Same year as Heat too. He was having quite the 1995.
Oh wow, okay.
And then we got the last character we wanted to talk about is Michael Wincott as Philo Gant, or as I call him, the evil Christopher Lambert.
Okay.
He's got really looks just like that dude. And this is only a year after Michael Wincott had his iconic role as, it's so iconic I can't remember his name, Top Dollar in The Crow, another kind of similar dystopian, futuristic, but also cyberpunky action thriller.
And like, I believe you, but The Crow isn't even really in my wheelhouse. Is something I know, but I was like, that bad guy looks familiar. And you're like, look him up. He's like the 90s bad guy. And
yeah,
he absolutely is. You go to his Wikipedia page and he is the big bad in just a whole sequence of 90s and 2000s classic films.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, The Three Musketeers.
Editor's note, he was Scroop in Treasure Planet. Check out episode 21.
Yeah, he's got quite a resume. And he's still, you know, his career slowed down. I thought it was really cool to see him in Nope, the Jordan Peele horror movie from 2022.
I forgot he was in that.
Yeah, he was like the cinematographer he needed to film Jean Jacket. He was the best.
I got to go back to that. Yeah, I got to see him in that because he's really good in this. He's really a 90s villain in this. He's got his abs working. He's got his silk shirts open.
That iconic voice.
That iconic deep British accent, gravelly voice. It's good. The casting is pretty spot on.
Yeah, and he's good at picking henchmen to do violence. He picked out Michael Jace, and don't Google him.
I did, because this guy is a very handsome, tall man, and they tell you that the character was a running back for the Rams, and he fell on some hard times and became Philo's bodyguard. And I'm like, that guy looks familiar. Was he really in football? And turns out he's really in jail.
Yep, and not for any of the fun crimes.
No, it's a sad story. The crime he committed happened long after this, but he's doing a 40 years to life sentence. Kind of a sad footnote because, yeah, there's no hint that this actor or the character really has any deep evil or violence in him, but sometimes real life sneaks up on you.
I was going to go off on a little bit of a praise tangent for him because I've always liked him in the smallish roles I've seen him in. Probably his biggest role is in The Great White Hype, which is a movie starring Damon Wayans and Peter Berg, ironically, when Peter Berg was still just an actor.
Oh, okay.
And he plays a rival boxer. And I thought he was really magnetic in that movie. He had a role in Boogie Nights. He had a role in The Fan, which we covered. So we've seen him before. He's definitely a guy I knew, was like, I know that guy. And then when I saw him, I was like, yeah, that's Marvin Shabazz from The Great White Hype. And super sad, obviously, what happened. But it sounds like he probably is where he should be. Moving right along. Should we get into Act 2?
Yeah, why don't you let us know what happens next?
All right. Lenny leaves the nightclub with a bloody face and no faith. Oh, wordplay. But he does have a new clip because an anonymous stranger left a disc for him at the club in a plain envelope. So when Mace picks Lenny up outside, he starts watching the mystery tape in the back of her limo. Lenny recoils in horror as the tape shows the point of view of a masked man who breaks into a hotel room at the Sunset Region and sadistically assaults and kills Iris. Lenny tells Mace to drive to the hotel where they confirm that Iris really was killed and that it had just happened tonight. Next, they meet up with Max, and the three of them debate their theories on who is doing this and why. As an illegal dealer, Lenny can't go to the cops, but Max says he'll reach out to some contacts at the LAPD and get back to Lenny. Then Lenny rushes to Philo's industrial loft apartment to warn Faith that she's in real danger. An angry Philo offers Faith one chance to leave him and go with Lenny if that's what she really wants. In tears, she says no and urges Lenny to leave and stay away from her. On his way out, Philo's three goons attack Lenny, but Mace comes to his rescue and single-handedly kicks all their asses. Mace takes Lenny home where he gets drunk and crashes out. When he wakes up the following afternoon, it's New Year's Eve day, and he finds another envelope on his porch. This time, the disc shows the same masked killer breaking into Lenny's apartment and holding a razor to his throat while he slept. Mace comes back over and takes Lenny to show the mystery tapes to one of his suppliers, a technical wizard named Tick. Tick doesn't know who killed Iris, but he's freaking out because he just saw her, and he fears that he might be next. It turns out that Iris told Tick she had a tape she was going to bring to Lenny, and Lenny figures out that tape must still be in his impounded car. So Lenny and Mace break into the impound yard and find the tape, but on their way out, they're stopped by the shady cops Steckler and Engelman. At gunpoint, Lenny hands hands over a disc. But when they realize the cops don't plan to let them leave there alive, a shootout and a car chase ensue. The cops' bullets can't pierce the limo's bulletproof exterior, so they douse it in gas and set it on fire with our heroes inside. Mace is forced to drive off a pier into the ocean to put out the flames, and the cops leave them for dead. But they escape the submerged vehicle and make their way to safety, where Lenny reveals to Mace he gave the cops a personal tape, and he still has the disc Iris left him. It's probably a little wet, though. Now in hiding at Mace's brother's house, Lenny watches the tape and finally understands the incident that got Iris killed. Iris was riding in Jericho 1's Jeep when Steckler and Engelman pull him over and tell him to get out of the car. Jericho complies, but he chews out the cops for harassing him and violating his rights. Steckler gets so mad he shoots the unarmed and kneeling Jericho dead with a bullet through the head. The cops then murder the other two passengers, but Iris makes a run for it and manages to get away. Despite Mace's deep objections to squid technology, Lenny convinces her she needs to watch the tape and see what Iris saw. Then, as the city's New Year's Eve celebrations begin to gather steam, Lenny and Mace head out with no solid plan, only the hopes to protect Faith and find a way to enact justice for the killers of Jericho 1.
This is a long movie, and it takes a long time to even get to this point where you finally see the outlines of what's driving things. I think it's about an hour 30 in, this part of the premise comes out that the cops killed Jericho 1, Iris was a witness, and the movie is still misdirecting you as to why she was there, who killed her for that, and everybody's motivations. But it's a really complicated mystery, and it starts to feel like it's taking a long time to get to the bottom of anything.
Yeah, it's a movie that it could have benefited from. I feel like we keep saying this, but like it could have benefited from a more aggressive edit. When I first checked in with you to see if you'd watched it yet, you were like, I'm about an hour in, and I think I've started it like 4 times. So you're watching it in basically 15-minute chunks.
Yeah.
Which is not a good, like that, to me, that feels like a pacing problem where you're not like, you don't get sucked in. You have to like make the effort to stay with it.
There's a little bit of that. Of course, it's a little bit me as well. I have difficulty keeping my attention focused for long stretches at times, but I felt like I was putting in long stretches with this movie, and I'd put in 4 or 5 of them. And I'm like, and then I checked, I'm like, there's still 2 hours left.
Yeah.
Like, I got to somehow buckle in and watch it for longer.
That even happened to me on the rewatch where I was like, all right, we're at about the halfway point, and I looked and I'm like 40 minutes into the 2.5 hour movie.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, if we're giving editing notes on this movie, I noticed that even at the beginning, 20 minutes into the movie, it reintroduces the whole concept of the squid wire tripping thing for like the 3rd time. There's 3 whole scenes where first it's Lenny picking up a tape from Tick, and then it's him experiencing his own
selling it to the lawyer.
And then it's him selling it to the lawyer. Yeah, that's the 3rd scene. That's 20 minutes in is the 3rd scene where we have to learn.
And then he does it again to the businessman that Mace picks up.
Oh, yeah. Then he does it.
Explains it to him again. So.
It's just, yeah, it's pretty heavy-handed.
I forgot to call this out in the first act, but God bless Ray Fiennes. He's, like I said, one of my favorite actors. I don't know an actor alive who could have pulled off the scene where he's watching the tapes of him and Faith, and they're being like silly in a way that only like dead wives in movies are, even though Faith isn't dead, but she's just dead to him.
Right.
But like he has to like giggle along with the jokes that they tell each other in the video. And he's just sitting there with a stupid fucking contraption on his head. It's like almost like this is embarrassing.
Yes. But you're saying you thought he pulled it off. Like he
pulled it off as well as anybody could have.
They're like splashing in the waves. He's replaying an experience.
Yeah, they're rollerblading on the pier, like the Venice boardwalk.
They're doing very silly, like romantic couple hee stuff. And he's reliving that. Yeah. And I actually that one didn't stop me. I didn't notice that. It's only in his reaction to some of the other stuff that we're about to get to that I was like, oh, this is a real chore to try to act out the feeling of experiencing something powerful on a squid tape.
All right, so let's get into it then. You're basically referring to the Iris death tape, and I understand your squeamishness, but it's not just a death tape, it's also a rape tape. She is raped, and pretty graphically, more than most movies hint at stuff like that and don't actually just have it on film, but this kind of approaches it head on. I did want to give kudos to the actress who plays Iris, Brigitte Bacco. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, and she tough role because she basically has to be manic and upset every time we see her until she gets brutally murdered, but she still brought something to the role that was a little extra than just a damsel in distress. You did really feel for her.
Yeah, she feels kind of real. I think that's a good observation, despite the fact that she's only constantly in panic, running, crying, freaking out.
Justifiably, people are out to get her. So she's not having a breakdown for no reason.
But yeah, once I connected that it was the same person, there's a little bit of, because the movie has to be really twisty, some of the things throw you off. And because she's in a wig, she's in a dress, then she's dressed down, and like we've hardly spent any time with her doing normal human things.
Yeah, she's heavily made up and wearing a wig when she's still dressed as if she was working as an escort. And then when we see her in the hotel where she gets killed, she's obviously at leisure, even though she also does a good job just physically acting by like when you're viewing her through the killer's eyes before she knows he's there, you could tell she's like panicked, like she has a lot of pent up energy that she doesn't know what to do with, which she's kind of walking around and kind of like flinging things when she's done with them. You could feel her tension.
Yeah, really good performance. And because of that, because you are able to connect with her despite the strangeness of the circumstances, it's a really brutal tone shift when you realize you're going to watch her be assaulted and killed on screen. And I have to say, I couldn't fully agree that the movie had earned the right to go that dark based on the movie that I had watched up to that point.
Yeah, this scene did cause quite an uproar in its time. It was a topic of quite a bit of debate, and there's no definitive answer of whether or not it works. I guess it's going to vary from viewer to viewer. I think Kathryn Bigelow has made it clear that she is not afraid to kind of approach these very sensitive subjects with almost like a bull in a china shop mentality. We might as well just portray it as brutal as it can because that's what real life is like. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work all the time.
Yeah, and for me, the problem is not that you dared to make a movie where you showed some very harsh realities, but it's that the movie sets you up in the wrong direction. Like earlier, they're doing, as we said, Lenny's character is always joking around and he's taking beatings from bodyguards in alleys, but there's a punchline in all those, right? And then even more crazy, when he first gets together with Mace, he pisses her off by trying to sell tapes to her client, and she's like, get out of my car, and he throws himself on the hood of her limo as she's driving away at pretty high speed and makes a joke about, hey, I can't hear the radio from out here. But it's literally serious bodily harm for characters that are supposed to be dear friends. So you're like, oh, this is a wacky action comedy where the guy is riding on the hood of a car, a thing you would never do to somebody that you didn't want to kill, and he's joking about it. And then the movie pivots to the hardest, darkest, real violence against women. And so that's why I'm like, okay, you're not showing respect to one part of it if you're going to be lighthearted in the other part.
Yeah, this isn't Seven. This movie does have plenty of moments of levity.
Yes.
It's not trying to be dark and grim all the time, which, yeah, it does make it very jarring when it makes this hard turn into this very bleak videotape.
And there's fun nudity on screen. Like the movie is okay with being a sexy thriller. Juliette Lewis is taking her top off all the time in various scenes. And you're supposed to like find it fun and sexy. And then Lenny has to watch this tape where there's some more nudity on screen and it's very dark and upsetting, and finds in order for the script to work, he had to act majorly traumatized watching that tape so that everybody knows, the audience knows, this is not the titillating sexy stuff. This is the bad stuff. But he goes so big that I'm like, okay, that was like a little performative.
It struck me as a very complex acting challenge because what we understand the squids do is you're not just seeing it, but you're feeling what the person who was.
Right.
So if the killer is getting off in that moment, then to some extent Lenny is too, but he's not happy about it. So they're all kind of making this pained O face when they watch this tape. It's very uncomfortable and awkward to watch. Some of it probably intentionally, and some of it is just like the concept is very hard to get across on screen and they're just trying their best to like show you how they really feel about it. And then, yeah, Max is kind of the same thing. He's just kind of watching. He's like closing his eyes real hard and his mouth is open. He's like, oh. You can hear like, all right, man, this feels a little like having Lenny like puke when he gets out of the limo after watching it. I thought that would have been maybe enough to kind of get it across that he's
that's maybe
horrified.
And it's maybe just a choice thing. So yeah, it's a very good observation that you make about what they're actually trying to portray, which is something complex and has never existed in the real world. It's hard to judge them for how they decided to.
God willing, it never does. We don't need this technology. Yeah, I can't imagine the real world would do anything better with this technology than Strange Days did. How we're using AI.
Yeah, it's a very true feeling indictment of what people do with technology that overstimulates the brain.
All right, let's get into the killing of Jericho 1. Obviously very reminiscent of the Rodney King situation, more deadly, of course. And I thought D'Onofrio was pretty effective in this movie as just this kind of malignant force that just appears and disappears throughout the movie. The movie does a good job of making him feel believably dangerous. William Fichtner is just as fucking weird as he always is. Does he get a line in this movie? Does he say anything? Maybe at the very end?
Yeah, I felt like he said one or two lines in it. We talked about the casting. To put Vincent D'Onofrio and William Fichtner as these very small sort of character actor players in this movie shows just the depth of this lineup, because those are some heavy hitters.
And this was not like D'Onofrio before he was Vincent D'Onofrio. He'd already been in Full Metal Jacket. He was a known commodity. And I think that's part of the reason why he gets the lines and more of the focus between the two cops. I don't know where Fichtner's career necessarily was at this time, but he was also in Heat, had a big role with a lot of lines in that was pretty iconic. So not to keep drawing parallels between those two movies, but maybe that was his breakout and this was filmed before that one. I don't know, but it's just strange to see him like lurk in the background of all these shots and not say anything.
Yeah, you're like, that's one of our dudes who you recognize.
I think he's slightly ascended beyond that guy now. Like I'm like, oh, that's William Fichtner, but like just one level above. Can I do my Vincent D'Onofrio impression for you?
Oh, please do.
All right, this is very specific. This is Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin in the Daredevil TV show. You embarrassed me in front of Vanessa. Okay, that's all I got.
I like that. A little bit reminiscent of him as the Bug in in the Men in Black.
Yeah, he's doing the gravelly thing. The cockroach man. I don't remember what his name was. Earl, maybe?
I don't know.
But yeah, he's pretty scary in this movie. I thought it was a good performance.
Yeah. Bigelow has obviously seen Full Metal Jacket. She had him look up through his eyebrows in a pseudo Kubrick stare in his final climactic moment in this movie. So it's almost like that's why you hire Vincent D'Onofrio, is to do that thing for you sometimes. But I'll point out one qualm I had with the dialogue they give him.
Qualms.
He has to play this really brutal scene. Another case where the violence ramps up and gets very dark and scary. He's got this guy on his knees and he gets so angry in this confrontation that he decides to just murder him, which you get because D'Onofrio is good at portraying that unhinged rage, which seems realistic boiling up in an LAPD officer.
Many such cases.
But they gave him a line to say, just as his murderous fury culminates, they have him say to Jericho 1, "You're the one trying to rake the LAPD over a cheese grater."
Yeah, not a great line.
Why did he say cheese grater? What a weird analogy to use in the throes of your blood-boiling rage. Kind of took me out of it.
Yeah, Vincent D'Onofrio can make almost any line sound believable, but almost, not definitively any line.
Yeah, maybe raking people over a cheese grater was like a popular catchphrase in the 90s. I don't recall that.
Ian, we were both alive in the 90s. I think we would have remembered. Raking somebody over the coals, sure, but a cheese grater? No, not so much.
Yeah, like the image to him of the LAPD, an institution he revered, being grated like a pecorino cheese was too much for him. That sent him over the edge.
You're making me hungry now. All right, you ready to take us home?
Yeah, here we go. Lenny and Mace confront Faith backstage at Philo's club. Faith admits that she already knew about the tape and she was trying to keep Lenny out of it. It turns out that Philo had recently become paranoid, distrusting, and started surveilling all his business partners. And so he hired Iris to party with Jericho while wearing a wire. After escaping the cops, Iris came back to Philo, who sent her to the Sunset Regent to lay low. Now, fearing that Philo is the one who had Iris killed to cover the evidence of his shady business practices, Faith finally agrees to run away with Lenny, but Philo intercepts them on the way out, clobbers Lenny with a bottle, and takes Faith with him to the big New Year's Eve bash at the Bonaventure Hotel. After a painful heart-to-heart where Lenny struggles with his lost love for Faith and Mace hints at her unrequited love for Lenny, the two head downtown to try to make things right. At the Bonaventure, Lenny gives Mace the tape so she can try to present it to Police Commissioner Strickland, while Lenny goes upstairs to find Faith in Philo's suite. But the stodgy old police commissioner rebuffs Mace without even watching the tape, and she soon finds herself back out on the street and being pursued through the throngs of revelers by Steckler and Engelman. Meanwhile, upstairs in the suite, Lenny finds another tape has been left out for him to watch. The tape begins in a familiar fashion, only this time it's Faith who's being tied up by a perpetrator. But there's a twist. Faith turns out to be a willing participant, and the man recording having sex with her is Max. It's revealed that after Max was hired to tail Faith, the two secretly became lovers. And so Philo later paid Max to kill Iris, but when he told Max to also kill Faith, that was something that Max couldn't do. So he hatched a plan to kill Philo instead and to pin it all on Philo's jealous rival, Lenny. So first, Max had to lure Lenny into the mix by leaving him all those mysterious tapes, and then he fell right into the trap, walking into this suite tonight where he could be framed for killing Philo. But Faith has last-second qualms. She stops Max from killing Lenny, and the two men struggle. Max stabs Lenny in the back in a literal way, but Lenny manages to turn the tide and send Max falling to his death from the high hotel balcony. Then Lenny leaves Faith standing alone in the mess she made and rushes back downstairs to find Mace. In the meantime, Mace has had her own confrontation in the street with the dirty cops. She gets the better of Steckler and Engelman, but then a bunch more cops arrive and begin beating her down viciously with their batons as the crowd begins to erupt into a full-blown riot. Suddenly, Police Commissioner Strickland intervenes. He's watched the tape, and so now he orders Mace released and the pair of bad cops arrested for the murder of Jericho 1. Seeing that they're screwed, Engelman puts a gun in his mouth and kills himself, while Steckler chases after Mace in a murderous fury, forcing the surrounding cops to gun him down in a hail of bullets. Shortly thereafter, as Lenny has finally come to realize what's good for him, he rushes to Mace's side, and as the people of LA ring in the new millennium, Lenny takes Mace in his arms and they kiss.
Aww.
Happy ending for a somewhat dark movie.
I was going to say, the ending feels strangely incongruent with the content of the film previous. It's a little maudlin, but
yeah,
they earned it.
It's funny because we keep saying the mystery is so convoluted. Even during the reveal, the climactic scene, Max and Faith and Lenny finally face off and everybody explains everything that's been going on. It's even then, it's tough to keep straight, but I'm like, okay, Cameron and Bigelow are like real fans of the noir genre, and the noir genre is like famous for convoluted plots. No one can actually explain the plot of the Maltese Falcon or stuff like that. Where like it loves to get up its own ass with stuff that's so twisted you can't even really unravel it.
It was like a few months ago. I was like, isn't like China, like, aren't they trying to steal water from the city to use it in farms in Chinatown or something? And you're like, I think so. Nobody really knows.
Yeah, that's another inspiration, obviously, for anybody making neo-noir. And this movie has that sort of layers of like personal drama causing some of the pain and violence in the movie and bigger political forces causing some of it. But all that being said, in a really cynical noir style movie, the helpless hero might never get with the girl who's good for him. Like it might try to leave you with a down ending.
Editor's note, see also episode 152, Miller's Crossing.
But this one, it gives you something a little more maybe contemporary Hollywood where they actually get together.
Yeah, and it would be a really dark ending if he ends up with Faith after the movie kind of commits a pretty serious case of character assassination on her at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Like you get the sense that she doesn't really have a point of view in any of this. She's just along for the ride.
Yeah, like she and Max have fallen in love to the point where she's a somewhat willing participant in his murder conspiracy, although I don't think she knew all of it. But when she explains why she left Philo and is now passionately in love with Max in the space of the month that he's been there.
It's because he was kind of around, right? Like,
yeah, it's like we're going to see a lot of each other anyway. We might as well be lovers. And it's like, oh man, this girl is shallow.
Yeah.
Because you were holding out hope that she was real and that she saw Lenny's true goodness. And that sort of illustrates the goodness in her, that she could see that at some point she might realize that he was the good thing in her life and she should have kept it. But she kind of doesn't. She kind of just shows herself to be even more shallow than you thought.
And she kind of turns on Max when it's clear he's losing the fight anyway and is probably going to not come out on top.
Right.
So how sincere was that? And yeah, but the movie does play peekaboo with this whole thing so much, where there are some hints earlier in the movie, not even really hints, they're pretty overt, that she's with Philo to protect Lenny to some degree. It doesn't really explain why. So it's not like a twist. It's like a double twist that just feels unnecessary.
It's a lot. You have to really work. It takes some motivation to try to straighten this out. And we're obviously going to consume these movies pretty meticulously and had to write a synopsis and try to straighten it out. It's pretty hard to actually straighten out if you try to make all the timelines and the motivations work in this.
Yeah, speaking of hard to straighten out, let's talk about Max's fuck-ass wig.
It comes back in the end. It's not just a goofy character choice. It's a plot point.
It's a plot point. And like they do it like it's this huge reveal that he's been wearing a wig this whole time. So fucking what? What does that mean? I guess maybe he's been able to wire up inconspicuously throughout so he can record some of these interactions. But like we never see the fruits of that. When we see him making his squid tapes, he's always pretty overtly wearing the squid machine. Like he's not trying to hide it. So
yeah, I couldn't connect like why that was important.
They're just trying to make us feel better about the fucking rat's nest he's been wearing the whole time. They're like, we can't have people think that our wig budget is this bad.
I can't keep looking at that stiff artificial blonde hairline running across his forehead.
It's a straight line. It's a 90-degree angle.
But I guess it's just symbolic that he was a character who was hiding something the entire time, right? Like he was pretending to be friendly and helpful, and the wig coming up. That scene does feel like it's full of cinematic symbolism. There's a lot of mirror shots and people like pointing at each other through mirrors, and then mirrors and glass shattering, and then his wig coming off. Bigelow is going for something that has something visually symbolic to try to add layers of meaning.
Is there a I guess the Michael Jace character, I was going to say, is there a non-police officer character in this movie that has short hair? No, there are, because there's the lawyer and the businessman. But like if you're part of the underworld in this city, you got to have long hair. You got to have a fuck-ass hairdo.
I guess that's true. I guess that shows that Max was insincere the whole time and he was just playing a part to infiltrate this world.
I did love when we get a flashback to Lenny as a cop comforting Mace's child after there's some kind of vague incident involving her ex-husband. He's being taken out in handcuffs and she's scared for her son. So she goes inside and Lenny's sitting there with her son and just being a good guy and taking care of him and calming him down. And I was like, he still has that stupid ass haircut even when he was an active police officer. I thought that was going to be like a reveal of Ray Fiennes with a nice crew cut. And then like, oh, let's see how far he's fallen that now he's got this long greasy hair. I was like, nope, he just always looked like that.
Yeah, and he had the same sideburns. He's got these extended pointy sideburns coming down his cheeks, pointing out into his face. It's like even that, like maybe that's why he got booted out of the force. Like Strickland, the commissioner, was just like, look, we got a strict no razor sideburns rule.
Did you notice that Steckler also has the iconic far right hairdo like many years before it actually became a thing?
Oh, does he like shave side and part?
He's got like the shaved sides and the slicked back, real piece of shit vibes.
Yeah, and not used to be. He still is.
Still is, yeah.
Till the very last moment of the movie.
Oh, yeah, let's get into how the storyline with Mace wraps up here. It becomes very clear at this point in the movie that these two mysteries are not tied together at all. There's kind of happy accidents involving some of the same people.
And, yeah, even like Max admits, I made up that stuff about police death squads. It was just a couple bad cops randomly killed this important figure in the Black community. And so they kind of erase that distinction. But like the hero of this movie, ostensibly, who's Lenny, unveils the whole truth, kills the big bad in Max, solves his story, and there's 25 minutes left after Max falls off the roof. That's like a moment you think is the climax of the movie. And then they're like, oh no, there's another story. It's the social justice story. It's the killing of the Black leader and the possibility of complete civil unrest breaking out in the city. That still needs 25 minutes to wrap up. And it's kind of a lot. And I think it's very noble that Bigelow felt it important to emphasize that part of this movie. And like you said, she was involved in the community cleanup after the riots and had strong feelings about these issues. So like, I love that she put that in here, but I feel like in this end scene, she stumbles in a couple places.
Yeah, it was clearly something she was very interested in. She made the movie Detroit a couple of years ago, which dealt with a similar kind of situation in Detroit, obviously, between the police and the Black community. And it felt like she was trying to maybe have her cake and eat it too, with this like futuristic sci-fi mystery noir, but also I'm going to shoehorn in the social justice angle, which is a worthwhile angle to take, but the movie feels out of balance because they don't ever intersect in a meaningful way, really.
Yeah, it does feel like its own separate thing. And I liked the questions that it raised because it doesn't try to answer them with neat, cute, happy answers. It was like, is it better to expose this tape if it literally causes the city to melt down and more innocent people to die as the cops inevitably go on a rampage to try to quell the violence, right? It asks tough questions. And this character, Mace, wrestles with those questions about, at some point, she's like, no, but we have to find a way to get justice, or yes, maybe it's worth it, burn it all down. She struggles with that. And all that's well and good, except in the end of the movie, at Mace's story's climax, she is defeated and all is lost. And then the oldest, widest white man you could possibly picture miraculously steps into things, saves the day as the white savior, and makes everything right with the power of his white authority. And it's like, wow, you just took that agency away from your Black woman hero and gave it to an old white guy he's the only guy who can set things right. And now he's going to just magically step in and save everybody.
Yeah, I didn't even put that together, but reading your note, I was like, it's kind of fucked up. You don't want to judge too harshly because clearly the heart's in the right place. But at the same time, It's like, did you ask a Black person for their perspective before you made this movie? Like,
yeah.
Jim Cameron and Kathryn Bigelow, great filmmakers. They exude whiteness to an almost alarming degree.
It's a funny way to put it. But yeah, it does feel like a blind spot thing. Like they were trying to do right and they just fell on a movie trope, which is the authority figure finally comes around when the hero can't save themselves. But it was just unfortunate that it had all those qualities to it that sort of undermined agency and reinforced white saviorism.
Well, that is Strange Days. Would you like to hear where some of these people ended up?
You mean they weren't all done in by the Y2K bug?
No, Y2K came and went without incident. I gave quite a bit of a retrospective kind of on Kathryn Bigelow's career in the monologue, so I'll just pick up some dangling threads I didn't quite wrap up there. We mentioned Strange Days nearly ended her career, put her in director jail. Her only work between 95 and 2000 was writing the script for Undertow, which was a TV movie. That's rough. We already mentioned The Weight of Water and K-19, The Widowmaker, both bombed. So then it was 2008's The Hurt Locker, was a hit. And then, of course, she came back in 2012 with Zero Dark 30, also a hit, very critically acclaimed as well. And then 2017's Detroit, we might get a chance to talk about it someday. It bombed, but it was well received critically.
Okay.
And then A House of Dynamite. I don't know, did you ever check out A House of Dynamite on Netflix?
No, I kind of wanted to, and I found the topic to be maybe a little bit disconcerting. I wasn't ready to dive into that one.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. The ending is quite divisive among people from what I could tell, but I think it's worthwhile. It's definitely got that Kathryn Bigelow pressure cooker energy where you're ratcheting up tension throughout the movie.
Cool.
And she also directed 2 episodes of Homicide: Life on the Street, which is the beginning of the David Simon cinematic universe, so to speak, even though he was just a writer on that, not the director. And she directed 1 episode of a show we talked about pretty recently, Karen Sisko.
Oh, nice.
There's no announcement of any upcoming projects for her, which makes sense, though. She doesn't tend to put out like a movie a year like some people. She takes her time in between projects. Okay. She just had one come out in 2025. Written by James Cameron and Jay Cox. So let's focus on Cameron as a writer. He has written every movie he's ever directed, so that's quite a few notable screenplay credits under his belt.
Sure.
Some of the stuff he wrote but didn't direct is, interestingly, he co-wrote with Sylvester Stallone Rambo: First Blood Part 2, which is a fuck-ass title. Very unwieldy. He did an uncredited rewrite on Point Break. Weirdly, he wrote Alita: Battle Angel, which we will stay tuned for that. It's an upcoming episode.
Okay.
And Jay Cox, I mentioned in the monologue, worked extensively with Martin Scorsese, so he wrote The Last Temptation of Christ, Made in Milan, Age of Innocence, Gangs of New York, and Silence.
Nice.
He also wrote De Lovely with Irwin Winkler and a Complete Unknown, which was the James Mangold Bob Dylan biopic.
Oh, he's still going strong.
Yeah, he's got a project in development right now, a film based on The Last of the Savages by Jay McInerney. As far as the actors, Ralph Fiennes continued to be extremely busy and well regarded on both screen and stage. I'm sure it's no surprise that he's a theater man as well.
I can imagine.
Got that vibe for sure. He's had some misfires, like he was in that very ill-conceived Avengers movie, not the Marvel Avengers, but like the old British spy group. But he's also stolen the show in movies like Red Dragon, The Constant Gardener, the Harry Potter movies, In Bruges. He's great in Bruges. Love him in that.
Oh man, that's a movie that I just keep meaning to watch and I somehow haven't done it.
You got to check it out. I feel like it's right up your alley. You'd really enjoy it.
Yeah.
The Hurt Locker, Hail Caesar. He was in maybe the best Wes Anderson movie, The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Oh yeah, great in that.
The Menu, all the Daniel Craig Bond movies. He should but won't get an acting nom for The Bone Temple. We'll be talking about that come October. Next, he'll be appearing in The Hunger Games Sunrise on the Reaping, which is some kind of, I can't believe they're still doing these. And Francis Lawrence is still directing them all. The guy has really found his corner of Hollywood. He's just posting up shop, and he'll also be starring in Embers.
Okay.
Angela Bassett, she's also been busy. She had roles, one of her iconic roles, which was a couple years after this, was How Stella Got Her Groove Back.
Mm-hmm.
She was also in future episode Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds. She was in Olympus Has Fallen and its sequel, London Has Fallen. She joined the Mission Impossible series, starting with Fallout. She was in Bumblebee, which is an underrated Transformers movie that actually slaps.
Okay.
And she joined the MCU as part of the Black Panther franchise.
Right.
Next, she'll star in Wildwood. She's also been busy on TV. She's had roles in Zero Day, 911, American Horror Story, and BoJack Horseman.
I didn't know. Yeah, she's really active.
Yeah, she's 67. She's still staying busy. Love to see it.
Yeah.
We talked about Julia Lewis not that long ago because we covered The Way of the Gun, which she starred in as well. Some of the stuff she's been in since then was Opus, which was the recent horror movie that kind of came and went and could be a future episode if we wanted.
Okay.
By Design, Over Your Dead Body, and Dreamquill. She, of course, also was on Yellow Jackets, but asked to be written off at the end of season 2. So she's no longer part of that show.
Are you happy to see her gone?
She's not my favorite. I like her.
Okay.
The way Yellow Jackets is framed is the story split in two. You're watching the teenagers that are stranded in the wilderness, and Sophie Thatcher plays the younger version of Juliette Lewis, and I think Sophie Thatcher is a great actor, which is why I never felt a connection between those two characters, like the older version and the younger version. So we still get the younger version, and I think that's much better handled. The wilderness story is much better handled in general on Yellow Jackets. The show's not great at this point.
Oh, okay.
I did some last minute digging to find out maybe why Strange Days is so hard to find.
Okay, curious.
There has not been a concrete reason given by anyone involved with the movie, but there is some breadcrumbs that you can follow. And the most likely culprit is a Peter Gabriel song, While the Earth Sleeps, that is used in the movie and on the soundtrack. I guess Peter Gabriel's gotten very cranky about music rights in recent years.
Wow.
And if it somehow reverted back to him, he will not grant them license to use it.
Gosh.
So that seems to be, there's apparently it's a running theme in movies that are in this state of limbo that Peter Gabriel is involved somehow.
That's wild. I didn't know he was like a streaming rights supervillain hoarding movies and preventing the public from seeing them. And I imagine then it's just like that industry requires everything to be frictionless. So like replacing a song in the soundtrack is like way too big a lift.
Yeah, especially for a reissue of a failure of a movie from 30 years ago that's not top of their priority list. There are some shows that if you try to watch Friday Night Lights on Netflix now or whatever, that's how I discovered the band The National, which is one of my favorite bands, was a song of theirs is used in a scene. And I was rewatching the show a few years ago and waiting for that scene very excitedly. And it was a totally different song. I was like, they just swapped it out for like a similarly sad indie rock song that was probably cheaper. And it was such a bummer. But then it was a song by Great Northern, which I became a fan of too. So,
okay. That's not a bad ending, but it shows that it is possible. I guess if Bigelow or Cameron or somebody with money and muscle decided to make it a pet project to let this movie exist in the world, they could probably make it happen, but it just doesn't seem to be the will.
And also, if any listeners are so dead set on getting a physical copy of this, if they want to buy the Region 2 Blu-ray, a little trick I learned working at Circuit City is the brand Philips. A lot of their DVD and Blu-ray players are region free. So they'll play any version of it. Double check before you buy anything. But I always had a Philips DVD or Blu-ray player back in the day when physical media was still popping off because you didn't really have to worry about where you got your disc from.
Good tip.
So Ian, I spoiled it in the group chat with our third chair, Ron, what we're doing next. Do you remember?
No, I don't remember things that happened in the group chat.
All right. Next up, I was lamenting recently that we haven't done a movie that we could just beat the shit out of.
Okay.
Probably since Dark Phoenix was probably the last movie we really hated.
Yeah.
So I decided to pick one that I'm pretty confident we're going to have a fun time ripping apart. And it also ties into an upcoming movie, so it's even more synergy. We're going to be doing Street Fighter, The Legend of Chun-Li.
Oh my God, you did tell me that.
With Kristen Kruk. That's a name from the past that I forgot.
Oh, yeah.
Even more famously, Chris Klein, who gives, based on the YouTube videos I've seen, the worst performance in the history of movies.
Really? That's a big claim.
I'm super excited to sit down and watch this once and maybe twice if necessary. We'll see.
Okay, that's brave of you. I don't know anything about Street Fighter except this is an arcade game I saw in a 7-Eleven once. So
Hadouken.
Yeah, I'm very interested to explore the origins of a video game-based movie and see how it turned out.
Not the first Street Fighter movie. We'll have to get into the history of Street Fighter movies during this episode because there is quite a lush backstory to explore.
Nice.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe to the pod. You can follow us on Twitter or Blue Sky at Blast Zone Pod. I'm trying to tweet more. We've been doing some tweets. We've been getting active on there.
Having a little fun.
You can email us, blastzonepod@gmail.com if you have any movie suggestions, feedback, questions, or just want to chat about movies. We love hearing from you.
We do.
And we'll see you next time in the Blast Zone.
See you next time in the Blast Zone.
The Blast Zone.